I wasn't expecting my stomach to drop at 3:17 p.m. on a Tuesday. I was sitting in the shared kitchen of our co-working space, half listening to two interns talk about oat milk and venture capital, when I pulled out my phone for a mindless scroll. I tapped into the group chat, founders and fiancés, the same chat where Ilara once sent photos of the engagement cake we never got to eat. And then I saw it. A photo from Jules, Ilara's assistant. Captioned, "Ring, can't believe this is really mine." She said yes, and I said yes too. Hashtag promised. The ring on her hand wasn't just familiar. It was my mother's wedding ring. Gold band, soft oval opal inlaid with 3 tiny diamonds, each one representing a promise, my mom used to say. One for commitment, one for faith, and one for kindness. I'd given that ring to Ilara. Not as a proposal. Not yet. I told her, keep it until the day feels right. She cried when I handed it to her. Told me she'd keep it close to her heart. Now Jules was wearing it like it was some Etsy find. The group chat detonated in real time. Juno, wait, isn't that Kieran's mom's ring? Dev, did I miss something? Tessa, Ilara gave Jules her engagement ring. Marin, this feels weird, right? I could still hear the interns behind me, laughing about something small and stupid. But all the sound in my world shrank, pulled inward like the breath before a scream. The kitchen light felt too bright. The air is too thick. My throat is too dry. I clicked the image again. Zoomed in. No mistake. The way the opal caught the light, just like it did in my mother's hands. And Jules. Smiling, manicured fingers fanned out like she was showing off a prize. Ilara has entered the chat. Ilara, so happy for Jules' 2 hearts, she deserves all the magic. That was it. No explanation. No acknowledgement. Not even a half-hearted emoji. Just, like it was normal. Like none of it mattered. My thumb hovered over the reply box. A million questions clashed at the gates of my teeth. Why didn't you ask me? Why would you do this? Was it even yours to give? Instead, I typed nothing. I stared at her message, then at the ring again, then at the grinning assistant who had once offered to pick up coffee and file invoices. Who had quietly lingered in every meeting. Who now wore something sacred to me, something I had never wanted in anyone else's hands. I left the group chat. I sat there, in a kitchen that suddenly felt hostile, and let my phone fall screen down onto the table. The pain didn't come like a wound. It came like silence. A dull ringing behind my ears. A closing door. A small, tired voice whispering, "It's done, isn't it?" Outside, the sky was still a soft blue. But I felt winter crawl into my fingertips. And she hadn't even asked. I keep the box in the top drawer of my desk, even now. It's a velvet one, dark blue, fraying slightly at the corners, soft as memory, fragile as trust. My mother kept it locked in her closet, tucked between folded winter scarves and scented letters from a life before I existed. She used to tell me, when you know who you want to build with, Kieran, you give them this. Not just because you love them, but because you believe in them. I gave it to Ilara one rainy night in March, right before our beta launch. We were 2 years into building Pulse, the wellness platform that started as a college capstone and bloomed into something real. The stress was mounting, bug reports, investors ghosting, Jules just starting as Ilara's assistant. Ilara was spinning, overwhelmed, talking about pulling out of the demo pitch. I caught her pacing the hallway of her apartment, barefoot, sleepless. So I brought the ring. I remember the exact words I used, because I'd practiced them in my car. This isn't a proposal. Not yet. But when we're ready, when we both feel solid, I want you to have this. For safekeeping. Her hands trembled when I placed it in her palm. She stared down at it like it was alive. Kieran, she whispered. This is your mother's. She wore it for 27 years. Said it reminded her not of a person, but of a promise. A promise? To grow. Together. To keep choosing each other. Even when it got hard. Ilara closed her fist around the ring and nodded like she understood. And maybe back then, she did. We were always supposed to go into this side by side. Not just as co-founders, but as soulmates. 2 underdogs building something real in a world that only valued exits and equity. We wanted impact. We wanted to matter. That was our bond. But somewhere between then and now, something changed. Maybe it was the attention. The press coverage. Or the sudden influx of polished people at networking events telling Ilara she was the visionary, and I was just the builder. Maybe it was Jules. She had started small. Managing Elara's calendar, setting up Zoom calls, quietly organizing pitch decks. Polite. Professional. Too quiet. But after a while, I noticed Elara turning to her more and more. Whispering during meetings. Letting her speak on panels. Trusting her to make decisions that used to be mine and Elara's alone. Still, I told myself, she's just a helper. Nothing more. And I believed that, right up until yesterday. Now the ring is no longer in the drawer. It's on Jules' hand, tainted and hollow, its promise broken without a word. The hardest part isn't the betrayal. It's the silence around it. No explanation. No confrontation. Just, omission. Like Elara thought I'd just accept it. Like I didn't matter anymore. I look around the office we built from nothing, exposed brick, track lighting, faded vision board still tacked above the whiteboard, and I feel like a ghost inside my own dream. But I'm not leaving. Not yet. Because Pulse wasn't just hers. It wasn't even ours. It started as mine. Born on a grief-ridden night 2 years after my mother passed away, when I realized no mental health app spoke in human language. Everything was analytics and alerts. Nothing felt real. Nothing felt like comfort. So I wrote the first line of code in my dorm room while listening to my mother's voicemails. You don't need to fix the world, baby. Just soften it. That's why I built it. For her. Elara came later. And maybe. Elara can leave first. Some silences are mutual. Ours was not. Elara hasn't spoken to me since the post. Not in person. Not through Slack. Not even a glance in the hallway. She breezes past me like I'm just another member of the team, not the person who built the damn team with her. And Jules? She's everywhere now. This morning, she led our product alignment meeting, my meeting. With a self-satisfied smile and a curated Notion board she claimed she threw together, but had clearly prepped for days. I sat in the corner by the AV cart, arms crossed, trying not to make eye contact as she demoed features I spent 6 months prototyping. Elara nodded approvingly from the other end of the table, sipping cold brew like she wasn't sitting next to a walking breach of trust. I think Jules really captured the user flow we've been aiming for, Elara said afterward, glancing at me briefly, like she wanted a reaction. I didn't give her one. Let her wait in the dark. I went back to my desk and opened the Pulse code base, but my hands didn't move. Not toward the keyboard, not toward the mouse. They just hovered, limp, while I stared at the blinking cursor like it might type something for me. Anything to drown the voice in my head screaming. She gave the ring to her assistant. I mean, how do you come back from that? Every time I see Jules flash her hand, with that glint of opal and legacy and lies, I want to flip the nearest table. But I don't. Because I'm not the one who lost control. They are. It's subtle, but the vibes changed. The devs know. You can feel it in the way they glance between us during meetings, or the way conversations hush when I walk into the kitchen. No one wants to pick a side, but everyone knows what side they're on. The distance between me and Elara is no longer metaphorical, it's 3 chairs wide at every table. She doesn't sit next to me anymore. Jules does. Today, during a late afternoon alignment huddle, Elara brought up integrating a journaling feature into the next Pulse update, an idea I pitched last year and she shot down. We don't want to create emotional dependency, she said back then. Now, Jules and I were brainstorming last night, and we really think a reflective log could humanize the app. Thoughts? Everyone looked at me. I looked at Jules. She smiled, closed-lipped, but triumphant. Like she was proud of recycling my idea. So I spoke up. That was my suggestion. Last year. It's already half built in staging. A pause. Tension cuts the air like thread through skin. Elara blinked. Oh. I guess I forgot that. Good. Then we're ahead. No apology. No acknowledgement. Just a gentle steamroll. I closed my laptop, stood up, and left before the meeting ended. My quiet rebellion wasn't dramatic. It wasn't noisy. But when I walked past Jules' desk and saw the ring again, my mother's ring, worn on a stranger's hand, I didn't look away. I let her see the anger in my eyes. Let Elara see the absence in my seat. Let them both feel the space I was starting to carve, an emotional exit long before the physical one. Because I'm done pretending everything's fine. If this is war, I won't start it. But I won't stay unarmed either. The dress code was founder formal, which in startup terms meant blazers with sneakers and awkward eye contact over mocktails. I wasn't planning to go to the gala. I had RSVP'd maybe weeks ago and forgotten all about it. But Marin texted me that morning, everyone's gonna be there. Don't let her own the narrative. Narrative. That's what everything was to Alara now. Not feelings. Not relationships. Just angles. Stories she could pitch. Appearances she could control. So I put on the suit I wore to my mother's funeral, the same one Alara once said made me look unapproachably serious, and showed up. The venue was glass and chrome, buzzing with soft jazz and bad networking jokes. I'd barely stepped into the main room before I saw them. Alara in deep green satin, laughing too brightly, and Jules on her arm. Not behind her. Not nearby. On her arm. Jules had always been in the background. That was her power. She blended in, quiet, competent, forgettable. But not tonight. Tonight she was the main event, flashing my mother's ring like it was a seal of conquest. I moved through the crowd like a ghost, nodding politely, answering nothing, heading straight for the bar. I was halfway through my second whiskey when I heard it, her voice behind me, sugar-sweet and loud enough to carry. "We're actually thinking of co-hosting the next Mental Wellness Innovation Panel," Jules said. "As partners, obviously." A pause. Laughter. Applause. I turned. A man in a blue velvet jacket, some investor or panel judge, I didn't know, was shaking Jules' hand. Then he turned to Alara. "I thought you were engaged to someone else." And that's when Jules said it. "Oh, I was. Technically. But she changed her mind." And Alara laughed. Not nervously. Not out of discomfort. But it was funny. Like I was a footnote. I didn't realize I was still holding my glass until it cracked slightly in my grip. That was it. That was my last straw, my final tolerance. I didn't confront her. I didn't storm across the room. I didn't start a scene. I just pulled out my phone, opened our private chat, and stared at the unread messages she'd sent days ago. "We should talk." It wasn't what it looked like. "You're being unfair." Then, I tapped her name. Blocked. The confirmation pop-up asked, "Are you sure you want to block Alara Hayes?" I didn't hesitate. Yes. God, yes. I looked up one last time. Across the floor, Alara caught my eye. Her smile faltered for just a second. Not confusion. Not guilt. Surprise. Like she couldn't imagine a world where I chose to walk away without telling her why. And I realized then, she still thought this was a game. Still thought I'd come back. Still thought the story centered her. But I was done being written by her hand. So I turned, left the gala, and stepped into the night alone. For the first time in a long time, it felt like a choice. The auditorium lights dimmed at exactly 10 a.m. Rows of VCs, journalists, and founder wannabes filled every seat in the space like it was a tech revival sermon. Innovation Summit, Health Tech 2025, scrolled across 3 massive LED screens. Pulse had the third slot on the main stage, prime time. I wasn't invited. Not formally, anyway. The calendar event I once created for our moment had quietly been reassigned to Jules. I only found out through a LinkedIn update Jules posted last week. Excited to co-present the future of mental wellness with Alara Hayes at Innovation Summit. No tag. No mention. Just white space where I used to be. I still showed up. Not because I had hope. That ship had burned to the waterline. But because I needed to see it. The theft. The pivot. The way Alara would pretend she built something she barely coded. From the back row, I watched as the announcer called them up. "Please welcome the co-founders of Pulse, Alara Hayes and Jules Morgan." The applause was deafening. Alara walked on stage first, confident, polished, rehearsed. Jules followed, holding a clicker and wearing the ring. My ring. The stage design hadn't changed, teal and navy palette, soft gradients, the Pulse logo slightly redesigned but still mine. Still the one I drew on a napkin the night I named the company. I could almost see the ghost of my handwriting in the spacing. They began. Alara led with the mission. We built Pulse to humanize the mental health space through intuitive daily check-ins, ambient data, and reflective feedback. Jules demoed the features. My features. The Mood Ring API, the microjournaling function, the adaptive tone analysis I spent months perfecting. Each one described like she had conjured it from thin air. "Our design philosophy centers on emotional sustainability," she said. "We believe technology should listen more than it speaks." I stared blankly at the stage, jaw clenched, hands shoved into the pockets of the jacket. I now realized I was outgrowing. They hit every bullet point. Every concept. Even the product name I chose in a haze of grief after my mom passed. Pulse. Because her heart stopped beating, and I wanted to help others feel theirs. And not once, did my name cross their lips. I expected rage. I expected to want to stand up and shout, to rip the mic from Jules' hands and reclaim my story. But what I felt was worse. Numbness. Like I was watching a eulogy where the wrong person was in the casket. The pitch ended with thunderous applause. Investors swarmed the foot of the stage. People clapped Jules on the back. Elara smiled like it never occurred to her that something was missing. Or someone. I waited until the crowd thinned, then slipped out the side door into the sunlight. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stood there under the blue sky, feeling the space inside me rearrange itself. It wasn't heartbreak anymore. It was something quieter. Something final. A single truth blooming inside my chest like a cold star. This was never just about a startup. This was about who I became invisible to. And that, I decided, was going to change. It was 12:41 a.m. when my phone rang. I was awake, not because I wanted to be, but because sleep had become impossible. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw them on that stage, smiling like they'd never needed me. I didn't recognize the number at first. No caller ID. But something in me already knew. I let it ring 5 times. 6. 7. I should have let it go to voicemail. But I picked up. Kieran. Her voice was a whisper, like she thought if she kept it soft, it wouldn't sound so ugly. It's late, I said. I know. I couldn't sleep. And, she exhaled a shaky breath. I could picture her in her apartment, the one we almost signed a lease on together. The kitchen light would be on. The ring, my ring, probably on the counter beside her laptop. I saw you at the summit. Congratulations, I said flatly. It looked like a great pitch. Don't do that. Do what? Act like you don't care. I swallowed, pressing the heel of my hand against my eye until colors bloomed behind the lid. Why did you call me, Elara? Silence stretched out so long I thought she'd hung up. Then she said, voice trembling, I never meant for this to hurt you the way it did. I thought you'd understand, Jules just, she stepped up when you pulled away. She was there when you weren't. The words hit me like cold water. When I wasn't? I repeated, incredulous. You mean after you gave my mother's ring to your assistant? It wasn't about the ring. It was always about the ring. She let out a soft, frustrated noise. You're so stubborn. So dramatic. You act like I did this to spite you. I was trying to keep Pulse alive. You were withdrawing. You were making everything so heavy. I was building, I said, my voice low. I was working 70 hours a week to make sure the company you kept saying you believed in didn't collapse. I was trying to make something that mattered. And I was trying to survive, she snapped. Jules made it easier. She didn't make me feel like I was failing every second. It clicked then. The final puzzle piece. She didn't just fall out of love with me. She fell out of love with who we were. With the version of herself who needed me. You know what's funny? I said. You always accused me of being too serious. Too earnest. But you never asked yourself why you needed someone to carry the gravity for you. Don't turn this around on me. I'm not turning anything. I'm done spinning. She was crying now. Or trying not to. Can't we just, talk, really talk? Without all this honesty. I cut in. No. We can't. A soft sob. So that's it. After everything, you're just going to pretend we never. I'm not pretending anything, I said quietly. I'm just refusing to follow you any further. There was a long pause. I could hear her breathing, uneven and raw. Kieran, she whispered, I still care about you. That's the problem, I said. You care. But you don't respect it. The silence that followed felt clean. Like the moment after a storm when the air is finally clear. I didn't wait for her to reply. I ended the call. And for the first time since I handed her that ring, I felt something that almost resembled peace. The post dropped at 8:03 a.m. sharp. I was on my way to the office, latte in hand, earbuds in, half listening to a podcast I couldn't care less about. It buzzed into my notifications like any other update. But there it was. Ring Elara Ride is engaged to Jules Venn. What's meant to be will find a way. The caption was short, serene. Like it hadn't been born from betrayal. Like it wasn't built on something stolen. The photo made me stop cold in the middle of the sidewalk. There she was, Elara, wearing the silk blouse she once told me made her feel dangerously elegant, her arm looped around Jules. Jules, in all white, smug and hollow-eyed, her hand held forward to show the ring. My mother's ring. The emerald caught the morning light. A shard of green flame on Jules's finger. It burned. The comments flooded in, hearts, champagne bottles, lines like, "So happy for you too." 2 hearts. A power couple if I've ever seen one. Knew it since day one. Destined. I laughed. Out loud. Right there on the street. It startled a woman walking her dog. She gave me a wide berth. I couldn't blame her. There was something unhinged about laughing at your own funeral. Because that's what it felt like. Watching the future I had once imagined go up in lights on someone else's stage. But strangely, the hurt didn't land where it used to. Maybe because this was final. She had made her choice. Loudly. Publicly. Irrevocably. And suddenly, I didn't feel like the man left behind. I felt like the man dodging a bullet. I slid the phone into my pocket and kept walking. No more checking her stories. No more wondering if she'd come back. No more hoping. I had spent months trying to understand her actions, replaying conversations, editing memories like I could fix the story in post-production. But she'd already rewritten the script. I just hadn't been brave enough to leave the theater. Until now. In the elevator up to the office, I opened Instagram, not hers, mine. I had barely posted in the last year. That was her thing, curating, controlling, aesthetics. But I snapped a photo right then, sunlight behind me, coffee in hand, tired eyes, real. Caption. Closure is expensive, but regret costs more. Back to work. I hit the post. And for the first time since this saga began, it didn't feel like I was trying to send a message. It just felt like I was finally done listening to hers. They say time heals. They never mention how satisfying it is when time also reveals. It had been 6 months since Alara's announcement. 5 since Jules posted a soft launch of her solo venture, an awkward way of saying the startup had collapsed. Investors pulled out. The media lost interest. Alara was still posting, still pretending. And me? I had moved on. Not out of bitterness, but out of clarity. A week after their engagement post, I finally said yes to something that had been right in front of me for months, Sophia. My closest friend, my sounding board, the one who had helped me pick up the pieces without asking for anything in return. I didn't rebound into her. I arrived at her, whole. And it felt good. Real. So when we announced our engagement, it wasn't to flex or retaliate. It was to celebrate that somehow, despite everything, I still believed in love. Just, not the performative kind. Not the kind you stage for followers. The kind that shows up at 3 a.m. with soup and silence when you're falling apart. Alara messaged me 2 hours after the announcement. Alara. I didn't expect this from you. You said you needed time. That was rich. I stared at the message for a full minute before replying. Me. You gave my ring to someone else and called it destiny. I gave myself a second chance and called it healing. We're not the same. She didn't respond. But I saw her watch every story. Every post. Every tagged photo. 2 weeks later, Jules announced their breakup in a rambling podcast episode about incompatible ambitions. She never mentioned the ring. Probably pawned it by then. The last time I saw Alara was at a tech networking panel. She approached me after, all tight smiles and hollow compliments. Looks like you're doing well, she said, eyes flicking to Sophia beside me. I smiled back, not cruel, just calm. I am. She hesitated. I was wrong, you know. About a lot of things. I nodded. Me too. But I learned. Did you? She didn't answer. Just walked away, heels clicking too loud against the floor, like she needed to be heard somewhere. I didn't watch her go. I turned back to Sophia and took her hand, not because I needed to prove anything, but because I didn't. Some people lose you and expect the world to pause. But I kept moving. And somewhere between heartbreak and healing, I stopped being the man who begged for love, and became the man someone was proud to choose.